It's the Muelendez Monthly Sports Spectrum. We're back. AJ Mendez, Mike Muella, coming to you from Orlando and Miami, all over FL. So we're back. It's time for fall. And I think for me, this being my first fall in Miami, fall means football. And Mike, honestly, I don't know of anyone that can talk about football like you, knowledgeable about Kane's football history, all the moves and everything. For me, it's one of the most difficult sports just because of the huge rosters, all the moving pieces. So let's talk about it. Ranked 19th in the AP poll. I still haven't watched some of the breakdowns that have been posted online about how it all comes together, but from your perspective, how does it all how's it all looking for the Canes for 2024 fall?
I think it's looking really good. There's definitely a lot of potential for upward movement in the poll because that's the excitement with college football. Anything can happen in any given week. And I think the biggest thing for me was that there were about four or five different teams from the ACC that were ranked in the preseason poll. Louisville was not ranked in the top 25, yet they just played Florida State in the conference championship game. They had a really, really good season. I think they finished as high as 10th or 15th, somewhere in that range in the poll last season. But Clemson, Florida State, NC State, Miami, they're all in the AP poll. Miami, of course, being ranked 19th. It's also giving a lot of potential to a lot of the new guys. Cam Ward has already been nominated for a whole bunch of awards. He was voted as the ACC preseason player of the year. Damian Martinez, Kiko Maunoa, Francis Maunoa, Ruben Bain, a bunch of guys up for so many different awards. But that goes into a ton of momentum now leading into the UF series, which is about 2 weeks from today, a T minus 30 minutes ago, as we're sitting here doing our recording. Surprised Florida honestly wasn't ranked in the top 25 either,
That's what I
because
thought. That's what
Miami
that
and
was.
Florida is like one of the premier college football matchups. Probably not as big as your Ohio State, Michigan, or Florida State, Miami, or your Alabama, LSU kind of rivalries. But yeah, so what we thought was originally going to be a top 25 matchup between Miami and Florida is now a top 25 team against an unranked opponent to start the season.
Yeah, that was the big thing for me because obviously expanded football playoffs, everything. I mean, I guess it really does bring in a lot more importance to be in that poll because it's no longer, well, you can be ranked top 10 in the country means nothing. You're not making the playoff. That sort of thing. So you could you'll get a good bowl game, but at the end of the day, everybody wants to be in the playoff. And now I think there's a lot more importance placed on ranking, of course, going up it, and just trying to put yourself in the best position within the pool. But I was very surprised when I looked at, because I was just kind of thinking to myself, when is that Miami UF game that's so infamous that I've heard of? Obviously, I've never had that experience being new here. So very exciting for me. It's too bad it's in Gainesville, but whatever. But it's going to be, very exciting. I'm sure the buzz will still be there. So I think that'll be an interesting game because Florida might come out a little bit thinking, hey, we're feeling a little bit disrespected. I don't think they're going to come out, and obviously the rivalry is more than enough, but I think just that little extra bit of, just poking the bear, poking the gator. Don't poke an alligator. So it's gonna be a fun one to watch because with everything that's changed in Miami now, kind of back to one of those prime programs. Are we national championship contenders? No, I don't think so. But uh, trending definitely in that right direction if the program continues to build the way they are. But that's going to be. I mean, what a better way to open up a season, open up a new landscape of college football. Um, I'm very excited for it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of fans are gonna be excited for it too. This is a game that's gonna be put on national TV. It's gonna be at 3:30 on ABC on August 31st. It's gonna be Miami and Florida. Now, the last time that Miami and Florida met, Manny Diaz was in his first season as head coach at Miami, just a season after being promoted from defensive coordinator. And I really think that this is going to be a prove it game for Mario Cristobal and his staff. If you can go out there on the national spotlight and put on a show against an in-state rival, it says a lot of things about your team. And I get it, early season, first game coming out on the road against a tough opponent who you haven't played in 5 years. It's going to be a little bit different, but I think that if Cam Ward is able to get his protection in the pocket and Miami is able to build the ground game too with Damian Martinez, Chris Johnson, Mark Fletcher Jr., I don't think there's going to be any defense in the country that can stop this offense, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think with just I really think it's a 1-2 punch. I mean, definitely Johnson brings that little bit extra bite that you need because it's never good to have a one man running game.
Hmm.
Um, but of course, Cam Ward can run a little bit too, and use his legs. But just to have that 1-2 punch of him and Dame, it is going to be telling in that first game of okay, these are the moments we need to become accustomed to because when the lights shine the brightest on a top 25 team, you can't fade, and you can't shy away, and you have the tools now. You have the tools. You've built the roster, and hopefully, it is always difficult early in the season to see how a team is gelling, and there's gonna be work to do, I'm sure. Um, but I think Miami could come out with here's my score prediction. I'm calling 27-14 in favor of Miami on the road in the swamp. You?
Hmm. I like that. I like that, but I'm gonna one up you here. I'm gonna go 35-21 Miami. I think this is a game that can redefine Miami football. Bring it back to the game and the team that we once knew, back in like the early 80s, 90s, and 2000s, even into like the early 2010s when Miami was just not afraid to put the ball down the field. They were not afraid to run it right down your throat, with guys like Lamar Miller and Duke Johnson and Philip Dorsett on the outside, and you had those strong arm Stephen Morris at quarterback, and then you that kind of led into Brad Kaya as well, who is probably one of the top two quarterbacks in Miami history alongside Ken Dorsey. Top 10 or top two in yards and touchdown passes. But yeah, is Miami going to be the Miami of old, or is this going to be the Miami of, oh, just another overhyped Hurricanes team that, starts off well or starts off like we expect them to, and then they just collapse right back into the world of mediocrity?
Yeah. Yeah, it will be somewhat telling. I always and we'll talk about it right now as we move into another Canes fall sport, which I'm very excited about. Canes soccer. We only got one team here at the U. So a lot rides for me on Canes women's soccer, and it's always difficult again when you talk about one game, the beginning of the year, whether it should be a win, whether you should be competitive, whether you kind of expect to lose but you want to sort of hold your own. It's difficult to, I think, predict too much into the future and say, oh, well, this means that 4 weeks down the road, this is going to happen, and that always, I think, tends to happen when you see whether it's people on social media or analysts on TV
Hmm.
kind of stretching it a little bit too far. But with just a little bit to give a little bit of a background, Mike, a little bit more on Canes women's soccer in the past. And then I'll get into a little bit of what happened on Wednesday, or Thursday, rather.
Yeah, Miami has been on the struggle bus in recent years. Their last double digit win season came in, I believe, 2016, and that's when they had 10 wins or so, I believe. Last year, Miami only had 3 wins. The year before that, six. A couple years before that, I think it was only one. But of course, they have a new head coach this year in Ken Masur. 9 years as an assistant at Vanderbilt, reached five NCAA tournaments. They did have their first match of the season on Thursday, which unfortunately was a 1-0 loss at home to North Florida. That Miami's first loss in school history to North Florida. That was it was a bit shocking, honestly, but it was a good sign for Miami, I guess, in a way, because it showed that they have potential. They just missed some opportunities to put the ball in the back of the net, but they
Mhm.
had their chances. I thought
Yeah.
the defense played well enough. They weren't overly aggressive in terms of committing the fouls. They were able to win a lot of corners and draw a lot of set pieces, which I think was very telling because you could score a lot of goals from those corner kicks and set pieces. Because then who knows, that could also possibly lead to a penalty or a free kick from inside the 10-yard box. Who knows? Um, but of course, Miami does have another game tomorrow, which you will be on the call for, going on the road to Boca Raton to take on the in-state foes, Florida Atlantic Owls. What was your reaction to Miami? Was it a step in the right direction, or does it say, "Oh, this is the same old Miami that we had under former head coach Sarah Barnes"?
Yeah, there's a lot of sentiments here, of course, and I'm gonna say a little bit right now and a little bit more tomorrow, of course, on the pregame show. But for Miami, I think it's very difficult to compare a team of old, a program of old on under another system, another head coach, to a team that's played one game, right? And again, I don't want to be like a lot of the people that say, "Oh, that this means it's a historic loss, and that means that this team is no good," and kind of dismiss that. I think there are a lot of good signs. Of course, you have to be cautious of, especially something that I'm always very cautious of, which is when you're a team that creates opportunities and you get into prime positions and can't finish those, it's okay for it to happen in a game or a couple games in the season, but you need to make sure that one, it doesn't happen when you can't afford it to. In big
Hmm.
games, deciding games that can move you up the standings into the conference tournament, you don't want to compromise your position in that way, and you also don't want it to become something that kind of plagues your team. Of it becomes a routine, and you all of a sudden realize, this is a little bit of what it means to be on Miami, which is, well, we create the opportunity, but we miss because Miami had more shots. They had more clear
Hmm.
opportunities, but they didn't put them away. And in soccer, it's not about how many opportunities you have. It's not about the possession that you have. It's not about how well you play or how well you defend, to be honest. It's really just about, do you, when you get the chance, put the ball in the back of the net? And UNF did that and Miami didn't. And that's all it comes down to. There's no real, well, Miami played better. It's like, that's all well and great, but you don't want it to become a season of, oh, Miami's playing great, but they're not getting results. And for a little bit of that, I want to hear from you because you got to sit down with Ken Masur in the spring and hear from him, kind of pick his brain. And I honestly want to go back and watch little bits and pieces of that interview, but I really want to sit down and watch it all, especially ahead of tomorrow. Just get us in the mind a little bit of Ken Masur and kind of how, what you think he would expect to tell his players. Um, you know, listen, team, this is what happened. These are the takeaways. These are the things we need to do a little bit better. What exactly do you think Ken Masur's attitude to the season is going to be?
Well, I think that, hey, I think it I really think that it's gonna be and this is what he told me, it's gonna be hey, we're gonna go out there, we're gonna compete every day. Are we gonna win a championship in our first year together? Probably not. But he's excited for the potential to bring home a championship, and that's not just an ACC title. That's obviously with the ultimate goal of winning home a national title. Um, but I think it's a really good start, you know? It's only a 1-0 loss. It's not like a 3-0 or a 5-0 loss at home. And, you know, they had a lot of opportunities. And
Yeah,
the one goal that UNF had was off a clearance that one of the Miami defenders just couldn't take control of. And sure enough, she struck it from about 12 yards out and just got it past Clarice Foley, who I think had a really good game despite allowing the goal. Her defense helped her out, and I think a lot of that comes with a veteran experience of Adriana Serna, you know, and Julia Edwards and Caroline Hood, and I really some of the more experienced players who have been here for a year, 2 years, even 3 or 4 years in terms of Edwards and Serna. But a lot of the freshmen and transfers that he brought in, I think, are going to be very, very crucial in the terms of the development and the chemistry of this team. Because once you get those young studs on the ball and you get them rolling, they're not going to stop. And I
yeah,
really think that this is a Miami team that's going to be able to score goals and make the right plays, make the right passes, know what to do in space when the ball is at their feet. They just have to be mentally strong and they have to be mentally sharp. They need to be okay. We can't let this game get away from us. We just need to stay composed and keep fighting. And that's what they did against UNF. And it showed in the second half. Miami had their opportunities, but it, nothing came of it, unfortunately, in the
yeah,
end. But they had a shot to win it. But you know, it's definitely a step forward in Coach Masur. From what I heard with him back in April, this this is a man who knows what it takes to win, and he's going to build this team up. Like right now, it's at the ground level, and that started when he was hired back in December. So right now, they're probably at the lobby and first floor. You know, this being his first season and just playing his first game, and then his second game coming tomorrow afternoon. By the time of this recording, you know, Chemisor is taking this team places, and it won't be long before Miami is going to take home an ACC title, maybe even a national title. Who knows?
yeah. I think that's what you can hope for. That's what you can hope for, and you want someone at the helm that has that sense of guidance, but isn't delusional. Again, because when you bring in someone to a, I guess in recent moments, recent times, has historically struggled. You don't want someone to come in and be like, guys, I'm here and we're going to win a national title. And we're going to win it. We're going to win every game. We're going to go undefeated. We're going to win the national title because even all the players look around that were recruited and chose Miami over other schools. They're going to look at the coach and go, well, you just lost all credibility in my eyes because I don't think you know where you are. Um, and it's going to be interesting. And speaking of coaches and interesting coaching decisions, how about Mauricio Pochettino to the U.S.
Mm,
men's national team? How about a team that has struggled a little bit? And we had a lot of great coverage on El Maestro Media talking about during the Olympics. The U.S. has a trend when it comes to men's soccer. Because the women's soccer, they win the Olympics, they win the Women's World Cup. Winners. Simply, I mean, a quarterfinal for the U.S. men's national team would be great because they haven't been there since '94. And for the women, when it happened in Australia, New Zealand, 2023, it was a letdown because they're used to winning it all, whether it's the Olympics, whether it's, again, the World Cup. So for Pochettino to come into a team that at the U23 level, you know, gets spanked by Morocco, gets spanked by a France, programs that are developing players to go to the World Cup and go to semifinals, you know, perform in the African Cup of Nations, perform at the Euro. The U.S. men's national team, the B team has lost to Panama in the Gold Cup. In the last Gold Cup, they couldn't perform. And when it's been the star team again, right now, CONCACAF is very weak. You see a Mexico team that's struggling. They're bringing in, you know, they've brought in their new coaches, Javier Aguirre, and they're targeting Rafa Marquez for the 2030 World Cup, which I think is a huge mistake. They should have done it for now. But that favors the U.S. because the U.S. still runs CONCACAF. Costa Rica, again, well, now that I'm kind of saying it all out loud, it's like Costa Rica just had a whole debacle with their head coach, Gustavo Alfaro. He
mhm.
resigned. He left for Paraguay. So a lot of coaching changes right now. The most stable team being Panama and Tomas Christensen, who's been there for a decade, just working with the players, and he's really, really developed everyone. But Pochettino doesn't have a lot of time. And most recently, of course, with Chelsea, a Chelsea team that bought 700 million plus dollars in players. Of course, with Todd Bowley at the helm, Dodgers owner, throwing money everywhere, just like he does with the Dodgers. Chelsea being a runner up in the Carabao Cup, which people in England don't really care about. Teams in England don't care that much. But before that, of course, a little bit of success with PSG, which I don't know how much you can attribute to that because no matter who the coach at PSG is, they always win.
Hmm.
And and then you have, of course, his longest tenure at Tottenham, where he reached that one Champions League final, and other than that, had the one season where he finished second in the Premier League. So for me, I look at some of the names that were being thrown out before, like Steve Cherundolo, and I was thinking, I was just doing this.
Mm.
My reaction was just this, and that's no knock to Steve Cherundolo and what he's done in MLS, but there's just certain people that fit better in certain positions. And
Hmm.
this for me was the best hire that the US men's national team could get because you wanted a Pochettino, you wanted a Klopp, maybe you wanted an Henry or a Patrick Vieira. But how are you kind of feeling? I feel fantastic. I'm actually going to be on another podcast that will be part of El Maestro Media, hopefully talking with Alexi Lawless soon
Mm.
about what he thinks. Great to work with him this summer at Fox Sports, and I'm elated about it, and you won't hear that from me for the U.S. men's national team very often. So, just your thoughts on Pochettino and the direction this kind of takes the USMNT.
Yeah, I think this is a huge step forward for the US men's national team. Obviously has a ton of managerial experience working with Espanyol from 2009 to 2012, and then going to the Premier League with Southampton and Tottenham from 2013 all the way through 2019 before taking a year off and then going over to PSG and working with guys like Neymar and Di Maria and Cavani, all those super talented players, Mbappe as well for that matter, and then working with Harry Kane and Heung-min Son over at Tottenham as well, and then finally spending the last season over at Chelsea. He's 316, 144, and 189 in his career, wins, draws, and losses. But I think it's going to be a really fluid transition because, he's going to get to work with a bunch of talented players like a Christian Pulisic who plays for AC Milan in Serie A. He's going to get to work with a lot of guys like Fuller Balogun, who also is at Serie A. He's going to work with guys like Weston McKennie, Serginho Dest. He's going to work with a lot of veteran, experienced players, but he's also going to work with a lot of younger players too. And it's going to be a building block system. Um, I would say that in terms of the Gold Cup and Copa America, I think it won't be long before the U.S. is back on top. And
Mm-hmm.
who's to say where we see the U.S. in 2026 with the World
Yeah.
Cup? Are they going to walk out champions? Probably not. But do they have a good shot of at least getting to the final? Yeah, probably. But again, that all depends with the groups and the qualifying. Well, U.S. won't have to qualify since they're the host nation with Canada and Mexico. But I think it's about what you do from here to now. And then also possibly an outlook for 2028 summer games because the US men could possibly get back to the Olympic stage as well. But overall, I think it's a really good hire because obviously the goal was to get Jurgen Klopp, but Jurgen Klopp said, "Thanks, but no thanks. I'm gonna stay retired."
Did you see he was actually, it was really, really funny. He was in San Francisco
Mhm.
riding one of the little, public scooters that you can just
Yeah.
rent out with the app. And he was wearing his hat and his Liverpool jacket, and someone was like, "Yo, I think that's Jurgen Klopp," and they just like slowed down and took the video of him, and it was like that indeed is Jurgen Klopp. So I think
That's funny.
he prefers that life right now, which is completely
Yeah.
understandable. Um, but it'll be interesting. I don't mean to shut you down completely in your
No, no,
hopes
you're good.
of the USMNT, but I think quarterfinals is a good place to
Mhm.
expect for 2026. I get
Agreed.
it, and I've had these discussions and seen people like Alexi Lalas talk about. Hey, I made the quarterfinals as a player in '94 when the U.S. hosted it. I want to see progression. Where have we gone from um, 1994 until 2024, right? And the progression isn't there. You can't make it out of the group stage at Copa America. You hope that for 2026 you can maybe make the semifinals, but I just don't think. I think the U.S. can show that they're top 8 in the world. I don't think that the U.S. is top 4 in the world.
Yeah.
I think, space to go. And the team is very talented because you just look at a potential starting lineup. Matt Turner in goal. You have, again, question marks here, whether it's John Brooks, Walker Zimmerman, Miles Robinson. Um, Again, depends. And then Chris Richards as your center backs. You got Serginho Dest, Anthony Robinson, Tyler Adams, Weston McKinney, Gio Reyna, Pulisic, Tim Weah, Balogun. But then you just
Mhm.
even look at the bench. You have a wealth of striker options. And this is a point that I've hammered home, which is let's stop complaining about having a number 9 because the U.S. actually has a great issue, which is they have a lot of depth at the number 9 position. You could have Josh Sargent. You could have Brandon Vasquez. I mean, you have Ricardo Pepi. You still have Balogun. So it's like, how many teams have 4 number 9s that are playing at a high level abroad? Very, very few countries can
And
say that
playing
they have that.
consistently as
Yeah,
well, playing consistently.
and scoring because of course that's your job as the number 9 to score. And that's kind of the I guess the easiest job in the book when it comes to this is your objective, put the ball in the net.
Mhm.
And you have 4 people that do that. And even in the middle you have guys like Luca Della Torre, who I got to see
Mhm.
play Real Madrid at the Bernabeu, for Celta de Vigo, and he can hold his own in the middle with Real Madrid's midfield. The kid is good. You have Johnny Cardoso. You have guys then on the wings like Kevin Paredes. I mean, you have a lot of depth, and I think that with the right leadership, you can get back to a quarterfinal. And then really when it starts coming down to those games, those are the games where you need a good manager to have a good tactical setup to make sure they are put in the most optimal formation possible against whoever you might face. If it's an Argentina, a Netherlands, a France, whoever it might be, a Brazil, it doesn't matter. When you have one of those footballing minds, and Pochettino is among the best, that's the hire for me. Again, looking forward to 2028. I don't even know if Pochettino again would stay. Again, I think he's more kind of like, let me make my mark in international soccer and then kind of make a jump. That's kind of where my head would be at if I'm Pochettino. But very, very interesting indeed. I think the proof will be in the pudding for sure because we will start to see game by game. And we've said it. I've said it multiple times already. You can't take one game and run with it and go, oh, the U.S. drew Mexico in a friendly. Dang, it's all over. Pochettino's no good. No, it's gonna take some time. And like a lot of people were saying at Fox, um, you don't get a lot of time with the national team outside of a little bit of camps, and so it's just all to be worked on. But um, yeah, that's kind of where I'll leave it because I think it's still up in the air because the thing is on paper it looks great, but a lot of things have looked good on paper for the U.S. and they've surprised us all in the wrong way. So now it's just wait, and once the friendlies start coming and the Gold Cup, which by the way, I'm not going to rant about this for too long. But now the Gold Cup is going to include teams from South America and Europe and Asia, and it's like, then it's not the Gold Cup. I'm like,
Yeah,
then you're
yeah,
making up a tournament. Like
it's the
you're basically
CONCACAF
making a
Gold
shitty
Cup.
World Cup, is what you're doing.
Yeah, it's like the B team World Cup essentially is what it is. It's kind of like the U21s or the U18s World Cup, which they do have, but
Yeah,
it's yeah, no, it's called the CONCACAF Gold Cup for a reason. Keep it to the CONCACAF teams. If you're gonna make it if you're gonna make it with other teams, like your South American teams and your European teams, then call it the Tournament of Nations, I guess. I don't know, but
something. But
you can't
yeah,
call it the World Cup.
just say, oh, we're not going to have the Gold Cup this summer. We're introducing a new tournament, and the Gold Cup will be back in 3 years. Whatever you need to say,
Exactly.
but don't say, oh, this is the Gold Cup, and we're going to have Bermuda play Japan.
France.
It's like what?
No.
We're gonna have France play Trinidad and Tobago.
What?
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 It's not the Gold Cup. I mean, I get it. I
No.
get it in the sense that nobody wants to watch like St. Kitts and Nevis, versus Trinidad. I get it. I
Or your Djibouti
understand.
reference from our last episode.
Oh yeah, you know, people were very concerned about that because I'm very lucky to have some seats at the Azteca in Mexico City, which will obviously
Mhm.
host the inaugural game. And everyone was just kind of like, "Oh, just sell those, dude. Nobody wants to watch Mexico. Nobody wants to watch Mexico versus Djibouti." And I was like, "Dude, it's not gonna be Mexico versus Djibouti. Relax." Like people are
I
afraid
still
of
think
those
that's the
games, but
funniest name of a country ever, Djibouti.
Djibouti, yeah,
Oh man.
it's a good one. It's a good one.
And kind of where that's taking them in terms of 2026 World Cup and possibly 2028 Olympics. But let's go ahead and talk about the Olympics, but not 2026, the 2024 Olympics. USA winning the gold medal in men's basketball and women's basketball. USA women winning the gold medal for the eighth straight time. US men winning it for the fifth straight time. US overall taking home 40 gold medals, tied with China for the most gold medals, but won the overall medal count at 126. Oh man, what a summer. What an awesome 2, 3 weeks for the US national teams, respective national teams. Women's soccer also taking home the gold medal after falling short in the previous FIFA Women's World Cup. Um, but yeah, huge storylines. LeBron James and Steph Curry still doing it, as is Kevin Durant. Brianna Stewart, Diana Taurasi, just huge. Simone Biles, Suni Lee, and the entire U.S. gymnastics team. AJ, let me ask you, what was your favorite event or storyline that you actually got to witness, and you actually got to go to Paris for about, what was it, like a week, 2 weeks that you were there?
Yeah, like 12, 11 days, 11, 10, 11 days, I think. Yeah. 12 days included with travel, but no, I mean, it was like, I think total of here, I'll even pull it up. Let's see. I got to do Champions Park, which was awesome. I mean, so here's the thing about Champions Park. They bring out all of the medal winners. Not obviously not any. If there's any big athletes that for some reason don't win a medal, they don't bring them out. Hence, I wasn't sure, but Champions Park lived up to what they said it was going to be. But I said because the day before, Noah Lyles had won the 100 meters. Novak Djokovic had beat Carlos Alcaraz in men's tennis. And I literally turned to people that were next to me. I was like, there's no way that they bring out Noah Lyles or Novak. Those guys are never going to come here. All of a sudden, please welcome. And obviously, he came out to, I mean, a ruckus I had never heard in my life. Got to take Serbia flag on his back in front of the Eiffel Tower. I mean, things like that are spectacular to see. But overall, my favorite event, I think, um, I would have to say gymnastics is wild. I went to the men's all around final, and you see, all the rotations, all the finalists get to do um, their different events, and then you see because it's not the last gymnastics event. So when you see some of the guys that might not have won a medal there, but for example, one of the guys from the Philippines, he ended up winning on floor. He won a gold medal, and when you saw his floor routine and all around, you were like, because it's just like it's just like people were captivated by Simone Biles and the way like she just has that punch off the ground, which is just unexplainable because it's like you go into the ground and you just like it's just like you gain power from it and just boom, boom. And it's just unbelievable to see in front of your eyes. And I had some incredible seats for that. And track, of course, just to see it's just athleticism at its finest to see. I know Noah Lyles dealt with COVID, and then I don't know if you saw him after at a Paris club having some fun. That was a bit of an interesting story. So I would definitely say gymnastics was my favorite to just see in person. Swimming too, but just everything at the Olympics is just incredible to see up close. Just you can't comprehend what you were looking at with your own eyes, and how that is even possible. So
Man, that I'm sure was a blast.
what was your favorite to watch? You had to pick a
Oh
couple or one.
man. I would have to say my favorite event to watch was probably women's track and field. Sydney McLaughlin Lebroni is her. Uh, Total badass. Breaking her 400. Right. It was her 400-meter record. And then
Yeah,
just everybody
unreal.
dominating in the 4x400. That was a pretty cool thing to witness.
It's insane when she went second because at that
Yeah,
point, at
that's
that
what
point,
caught
I
me off guard.
because she went second, and I went, "What on earth are they doing?" And then she had the lead, and everybody, and then the gap was already here, and then it just got larger and larger and larger. I was like, "This isn't even close. Like, not even close."
She left everybody in the dust. And
But
then,
hey, Botswana,
oh
Botswana,
my
did you see that coming?
gosh,
Because I mean,
dude,
because
what?
they're a serious track country. I mean, for real.
Dude, that was like their first medal like ever. I think it was either their first medal ever or their first gold medal ever. I don't remember
Yeah,
the exact wording of it, but dude, they had a good Olympics too. So shout out to
yeah,
Botswana.
yeah, and shout out to Jamaica. I had some got
Yes.
to interview some cool Jamaican fans. That's up on YouTube. Um,
At El
because
Maestro Media.
that's right. And you change yours to I always forget where the underscore is. Is it Michael Muella underscore sports now, or Michael underscore Muella sports?
I think I changed it to Michael underscore Muela Sports. Let me go ahead and just
Oh, gotta
pull up the
confirm it.
verification. We gotta verify. We gotta verify. Okay, so it's Michael underscore Muela Sports.
Okay, okay.
So
And
it's yeah.
you had to change it. We talked about it last time.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
we
kind of overdue now that I've been graduated for 3.5 months.
yeah. I mean, I think you are UMTV through and through. And big time anchor carry last semester. I mean,
Oh,
my goodness,
stop.
no,
Stop.
no, 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 no. Because there were times I'm not going to name any names, not because I don't want to, but because I don't know. But there were some people that couldn't show up because of X, Y, and Z, and it was like, who's anchoring? And Mike was just like, hold on, LeBron, ah, time for me to
Nah.
anchor.
No, I'm not LeBron. I'm MJ. You better get that right. If you're calling me the GOAT, you better call me Michael Jordan. LeBron ain't him. Mike
Oh
MJ is
no,
him.
oh no,
Yes,
this is
bro.
all. This is just like and now we have to talk about U.S. men's basketball before we get into U.S. women, which was to close it
Okay.
out. I It was very interesting because in both of these, because the medal count was so close, the amount of people I knew in China, and I got to meet some incredible people that work in the TV industry in China, which is obviously very different from what it is here. A lot of publicly owned, government owned stations, which we really don't have that many of here. Um, but it was very interesting because they were all rooting for France in both of those games so they could win the gold medal count. So it was very interesting because it was really U.S. versus France, but China was also they were like go China, and it was like it was very interesting to watch because I was watching. I was like, yo, the U.S. can't lose. They're about to lose the medal count. But what do you think about? Okay, MJ's your goat. That's okay. Um, I think you're wrong, but that's okay. We're not. We're
Whoa,
not.
whoa,
Listen, we're not.
whoa.
We're not going to get into it, Mike. We're not going to get into it.
Fair
But,
enough. We'll save it for another episode.
we will get at some point. We're going to have maybe for the September episode. we're gonna have less soccer things to discuss, and we'll have some time
Definitely,
to put in the big
yeah.
debate, the big debate segment because I think LeBron's the goat. But anyway, there were some people support Michael Jordan as being the GOAT, saying that again, LeBron got bailed out because Curry, got hot, started cooking, turned into the chef we all know he can be, and kind of bailed out LeBron again. But what do you kind of think about, the over the course of the Olympics, there were people that didn't show up, like Jason Tatum. And I know
Bum.
a lot of my, whoa,
I
there are
said
a
what I
lot of people.
said. I'm standing on business. I said what I said.
Whoa.
I said what I said.
But there were a lot of Boston people, of course, that were very mad. Play Jason and all the memes about his mom thinking it's still AAU where she can talk to the coach and get him more playing time. But Steve Kerr stood by that, and it was the inconsistency of AD and Embiid, and now Embiid saying he might play for Cameroon when the Olympics come to LA, and it's like, wow, buddy was just gold medal
Pick a
riding. But
side, damn it.
which I don't think should be allowed. I think it should be like
Yeah.
international soccer, where it's like once you represent a country at the senior level, that's your country. You
Yeah,
can't all of
you
a sudden.
stay
It's
with them.
like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, thankfully, I am not yet playing. Hopefully, U23 for Costa Rica soon, um,
Hey,
but I thankfully don't have that problem because it would be very difficult to choose between playing for the U.S., which would never let me play for them. Again, so much depth, so much talent. But I think it should be like that. You pick a country to represent senior level, and you have to stick with it. You can't just say, "Hey, I won a gold medal. Now I'm going to switch to Cameroon." So that can seem like, "Oh, I love Cameroon." But what do you kind of think the trajectory of the team was, because people were calling it the dream team and really the competition being higher than it was for the dream team in 92. So what do you kind of think was the big hero? Of course, Steph Curry, both against Serbia and then against France, really showed
France,
up.
right.
Um, but there were, of course, big contributors as you'd expect with LeBron and KD. But what do you kind of think LeBron got bailed out? Do you think he was just as big of a piece as anyone to Team USA's success? How do you kind of feel about their gold medal run?
I feel like I feel like if anybody should have been MVP, I feel like it should have been Kevin Durant.
Hmm.
Simply because of how consistent he was all throughout the tournament. I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess you could make an argument for Steph, like over the last 2 or 3 games of that tournament, exploding for like I think it was he had 36 in the semifinal and then he had 24 in the final. So that's
Yeah.
like 60 points in the 2 games.
Hey,
But
let's
then
go,
quick
math,
maths, quick maths,
math,
quick maths.
math.
Um but yeah, you could make that argument. Then you could also make the argument for LeBron simply because, well, LeBron is LeBron James.
Yep.
Still think Michael Jordan is the GOAT because he is.
Sorry,
Um,
I couldn't hear that. Name bias potentially. I'm
no,
I'm hearing
no,
name bias. Name
it's not
bias.
name
Yeah,
bias. It's not
yeah,
name
yeah.
bias.
It's name bias. Anyway,
No.
continue, Mike.
Um,
Continue. Name
but
bias.
yeah, like this is, like yeah, like I get it. This is like the Avengers team is what they called it.
Hmm.
I mean, you had the Dream Team in '92. You had the Redeem Team in '08, and now Avengers in 2024. I think I think USA basketball is going to be back on top for a very, very, very long time. This is their fifth straight gold medal, and with the all the young players that they have now, with Tyrese Halliburton and Anthony Edwards. I mean, I'll throw Jason Tatum in there, but I personally believe that it should have been Jalen Brown representing the Boston Celtics in the Olympics, not Jason Tatum. Because let's face it, the best player on the Boston Celtics right now and through that entire playoff run that they had last year was Jalen Brown. Jason Tatum wasn't really doing that much in the finals. I don't think he should have been MVP, and I'll stand on business by saying that. But Jalen Brown had more double digit points in the playoffs, I believe, than I think half of his starting lineup.
Yeah.
Simply because Jalen Brown knows exactly what it takes to win. He's been a part of that
Hmm.
Celtics organization for years. I think it was what 2017 was his rookie year. Um, you know, I'm really happy for him that he got his NBA championship because he is probably, in my opinion, top 10, top 15 player in the NBA. And he doesn't get enough credit. He doesn't get enough respect because he's overshadowed by, oh, this is Jason Tatum's team. Like, we just gave him a $300 million extension. Not worth it, in my opinion, because what has he done? But meanwhile, what's Jalen Brown done? He's taken you to double digit win seasons. He's taken you to NBA playoffs. He's taken you to finals. Because let's face it, Jason Tatum didn't do anything in that final against Steph Curry and the Warriors a couple years ago. 2023, he against the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. Even in 2020, choke. Um, but yeah, don't get me wrong. Like Jason Tatum is a good player, but should not have been representing the Olympics. I think that should have been Jalen Brown. And then yeah, USA basketball on top. That's
Yeah,
probably where I'm gonna leave it.
and let's move on to the women before
Hmm.
we anger too many Boston Celtics fans and
Yeah.
everyone else. Dave Portnoy, who was very upset, and it's like, dude, go drink a beer and relax. Like, you built a great media company. Go, calm down. Don't let your veins pop out of your forehead. Like, just
Hmm.
go and relax. Jason Tatum didn't play well in the Olympics. Forget if he should have been there or not. He didn't play well in the Olympics. He didn't deserve to play. And with the depth and the talent that USA team had, and it was still difficult for them against France, but it was even more
Yeah.
difficult for the US women who really, really struggled against the team that I had previewed for El Maestro Media and kind of said, hey, look out. Like, this could be a close game. I know that U.S. women have dominated basketball even more than the men have. Um, and really, in terms of success, have been the overall biggest dynasty. so I'm sorry, I had to. Hey, the blur screen couldn't save you there. It couldn't save you there, Mike.
I
Couldn't
know, I
save you.
know. Anyway, continue.
Anyway, what were your thoughts on the women? Because I was surprised Brianna Stewart didn't show up more in
Yeah.
the paint. And again, she was getting guarded. You had Ayayi Valerian. Um, you had a lot of players for France in the paint. I guess kind of forward combos to Mariam Badan, Marine Johannes, these forwards that were kind of disrupting people like Asia Wilson, who obviously got disrupted less than Brianna Stewart, but the guard play was very important. Kelsey Plum was huge down the stretch. Sabrina Ionescu had timely assists. And even you couldn't really stop Gabby Williams. I mean, her
Hmm.
foot was on the line on that, what could have been a game tying three.
Yeah.
Um, again, people don't think of basketball as a game of inches, even though it often is. I mean, inches are the difference between a shot going in or going out, and a ball going in, staying, an extra possession. So it is a game of inches, just like it is for soccer too. Um, People talk about baseball being the game of inches, which, of course, we get that with the strike zone and everything, but not a lot separated these two teams. They were very, very even. And again, a 1 point win is kind of very, very telling of how the game went. Um, I think France left a lot to be desired um, in terms of getting to the line, but the U.S. gave them breathing room, not making free throws. So, what were your impressions of the game? Because I think a lot of people expected it to be less close than it was.
I think that the US just got off to a slow start.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, that wasn't the case in any of their group stage games because they dominated those games. But I really think that, over the course of time, like even in the knockout stages, like their their toughness and resilience got better.
Yeah.
Their dominance did not. But one thing I will say, there's nobody on the planet that can stop Asia Wilson. I mean, if she gets the ball in the paint,
No.
good bleeping luck because you're on your own. I mean, her height and her dominance on the interior makes her probably the toughest player in the WNBA to stop. You know, it's the reason why she's won multiple MVP awards. It's the reason why she's won multiple WNBA championships. And, you know, Kelsey Plume as well, for that matter, because they're teammates in Las Vegas.
No.
Yeah, surprised Brianna Stewart, excuse me, wasn't as consistent as she is in the WNBA, but I get
Yeah.
it. Olympics is different because you're not just facing players from the same league, you're facing players from all over the world and from different countries. So obviously the level of competition increases. Um, I think Sabrina Ionescu is going to lead this team down the stretch in years to come, like all the younger players. And you know,
Hmm.
whenever Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese get the call, and Cameron Brink, for that matter, who unfortunately is
That's a
out for the
scary team.
season with a
That's a
torn
scary
ACL.
team to think about in the future. I mean,
I mean,
just
think about that.
guard tandem of Kaylin Clark and Sabrina Ionescu, and then you have Cameron Brink and Angel Reese with the paint, and you're still going to have an Asia Wilson probably as a forward. Oof, wow.
Good luck. You're probably going to be lucky if you hit 40 points. You're probably going to be lucky.
Yeah.
Um, Simply because Angel Reese and Asia Wilson are two of the most dominant defenders in the WNBA right now. And
Yeah.
Angel Reese is most likely going to win WNBA Rookie of the Year. Um, Simply because she had, like, what was it, 15 or 16 straight double doubles, and
Yeah.
all
Double
of those
double
were on
machine.
points or rebounds, and she's just very, very consistent. But Caitlin Clark, Serena Ionescu, Angel Reese, um, and just all the caliber of younger talent now that are going to be able to lead this team into the future, you know, with FIBA World Cup and now Olympics in 2028. It's going to be a sight to behold. And good luck to the
Yeah.
rest of the world. Good luck.
Yeah.
But
Good
I
luck.
think I think in terms of this year's Olympics, US got off to a strong start, kind of slowed and deteriorated, but their fourth quarter resilience and second half determination was why they won the gold medal, in my
Okay.
honest opinion.
No. And it was interesting because it was a game I thought they actually could have used. They decided to go toe to toe with France and not back down. Um, I actually thought they could have used someone like Brittany Griner, um,
Yeah.
because it's like who can guard her realistically? You just feed her in the post, and she's going to draw a lot of attention to herself, and then be able to kick it out to shooters. Um, I don't know. Or even just like a little backdoor slip past Asia Wilson or Brianna Stewart. Um, Getting Nafisa Collier open for some jump shots. You know, spray the ball out wide to your guards. I think Jackie Young, and obviously she fouls out, but could have had more threes. Had you put a big presence in the post like Brittany Griner. And
Hmm.
honestly, after all that she's been through and everything, it's like use her. Come on, like she's been through a lot to get back to the game of basketball. Um,
Yeah.
and just I have to throw this in there because it came to my mind. And on the Melendez Monthly, we don't hold back. So you know who um the worst ever trade in WNBA history?
Oh gosh, I remember hearing about this. Oh
It
man,
I don't
what's her name? Oh my gosh. Why why does
you're
Maya Moore's name come to mind? I don't think she was ever traded,
no.
but
Okay.
no.
Okay. I think you're thinking you're going through your whole mind of WNBA.
Yeah.
Um, But here it is. It's actually Brittany Griner for that Russian arms dealer to return her to the U.S. Okay,
Dude,
okay.
that's a violation, bro.
Moving on to the MLB.
Bro.
Moving on to the MLB.
I
I'm
love
sorry, that was a bad trade. Overall, like, yes, every American should be brought home, but that was a bad trade. I'm sorry. Anyway.
it's a violation, bro. I don't even know if that's PG. We can't
Oh
say
no,
that.
that's not Who said the show's PG?
In our content? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Anyway, take us to the
Anyway,
MLB.
moving on to the MLB, just to close out. Um, you're a Marlins fan. That's
That I
rough.
am.
I'm a
Yeah.
Padres fan. It's been rough. It's no longer as rough. Um, it's been difficult last season, not making the postseason, obviously. Um, Kind of one of those you throw your hands up in the air and it's like you do one of these, you're like, what? How? You just ask
Yeah.
yourself, hello, how? Look at your roster. What is going on? Um,
Mhm.
but this season, what are your biggest takeaways from the MLB? What are you kind of liking out of the different divisions, both AL and NL? And then we'll get into a little bit of playoff prediction and maybe some potential award winners.
Yeah. I just think the injury bug is huge, just from the Marlins perspective. You know, Sandy
Pitch clock?
Alcantara, pitch clock, I
Pitch clock?
really I really think it's helped the game, because now we're not spending, 3, 4 hours
Does it
at a
contribute
time
to
at
injuries
a
though?
game. I don't think it does. I don't think the pitch clock contributes to injuries. I just think
The
it's
MLB says
unforeseen
no,
circumstances. Yeah, I just think it's a lot of unforeseen circumstances.
such as.
Like on the mound, like in case like the dirt is slippery, like you plant your foot the wrong way,
Hmm.
or or sometimes you're just throwing too hard and you blow your arm out. Like we've seen it a
Yeah.
bunch of times. Those pitches that are high and tight, it can hit a wrist, can
Yep.
hit you in the
That
facial
happens.
area, like Giancarlo Stanton did a couple of years ago. But I just think it's a lot of unforeseen circumstances in terms of injury. In
But,
terms of the Marlins, like
but
they would have been such a good team this year if their starting
thanks for
pitching
Luis
wasn't.
Ariz, by the way. We're really loving Luis Ariz. He,
I hate you.
I'm sorry. We're really loving him. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, Peter Bendix. Really.
Jazz
But
Chisholm out for the season potentially. Yikes.
I mean, they're going to the playoffs, so like he'll be back. But
You think? I don't know.
yeah, no,
I think he
Yankees
might
will
not
be
be
in the
back.
play. No, I think he'll be back. I will say, um, if the Marlins starting pitching wasn't completely decimated, they probably would be at 70 wins right now because Sandy Alcantara's out for the year with Tommy John, and then a week before the season starts, Eury Perez, who's only 23, 24 years old, or
Hmm.
no, not even, he's 20. He's 20, 21 years old. He goes down with Tommy John surgery, and I literally sank to my knees, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. Then Braxton Garrett gets hurt halfway through the season. He's out. Jesus Luzardo is out probably until next year because of the lower back strain. And then yeah, so you have Sandy, Eury, Braxton, and Jesus and Edward Cabrera, who are all out. That's your entire starting five from a year ago. And the only
Yep.
one of them who was healthy to start the season was Edward Cabrera. And because
Yeah.
Braxton Garrett started on the IL. And then also the Marlins traded everybody halfway through the season. They got rid of Luis Arraez in May.
Good
Then they
move.
shipped.
Good move by the Marlins. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but you have to think about it from an organizational perspective,
Yeah, I know.
which which was you. I think it. To be honest, it all started for me when it was selling time for Jorge Soler. Um,
Mm,
I think when I saw that move, I said, okay, sure, the Marlins might have made the playoffs, but they don't believe in this. And I just think the Marlins don't have that mentality as a club because the Padres have had it. Rest in peace to our owner Peter Seidler and
mhm.
a lot of the front office that I have really good friends in, but their mentality has been very clear, and there's been clubs that have been very clear with it, like the Braves, that have said, you know what, we want to be part of winning baseball. We're going to make moves to show our fans like we're serious about winning. We're going to get a closer. We're going to get an out. We're going to get an outfield. We're going to get a catcher. And the Marlins just kind of never looked like doing that. Like they had um, some potential starters. And you looked when Jesus Luzardo came over, you're like, okay, look at what they're building in South Florida. Maybe now the fans will actually show up to Lone Depot Park, which honestly is not a bad thing that they don't, because everything in Miami is already so expensive. I can always count on a nice little Marlins game that doesn't hurt the wallet too bad. That I think is a plus, even though they're not that good. But Mike, I
Yeah.
really am sorry. I'm sorry because but listen, you have a World Series.
It's been that way for 20 years, man. It's been that way for
You have a
20
World
years.
Series. You have a World Series. You have a World Series. You have a World Series.
And we completely dismantled the team in both of years after we won the World Series. That
But again,
1997 team was
that's
special.
Marlins. Those are the
Yes,
Marlins.
because our ownership sucks. Our ownership and front office is the worst in the entire league. The second we get good players, we ship them out like
Yeah,
within a year, 2 years. I think the
yeah,
only good player that we kept after like 2 or 3 years was Miguel Cabrera, and we shipped him
yeah,
off in 2007 or after
yeah,
2007 for that matter. And he
yep,
ends up being a Detroit Tiger for the rest of his career. He spent
yep,
like, what was it? He spent like 15, 16 years in Detroit. And look at what happened. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer now simply because Detroit loved him. And we just got rid
yeah,
of everybody. We got rid of so many good players. 1997, they completely tear down the team. They get rid of Charles Johnson. They get rid of Jeff Conine. They get rid of Gary Sheffield. They get rid of everybody. Kevin Brown is gone. Al Leiter's gone. At least Livan Hernandez stayed for a couple more years. Even now, they trade Chisholm. They trade Josh Bell. They trade Brian De La Cruz. They give away everybody. They're giving away the farm. And for what? A couple of prospects who aren't even going to be MLB ready for like another, what, 2, 3 years?
yeah. I don't know what the Marlins are doing. But there's been a lot of times I say that about the Padres or about other teams. Um, I couldn't tell you, Mike. I wish I could, but what I can tell you is that I think we might get a rematch of the 1998 World Series. I think we might see a Padres Yankees. We might see a Padres Yankees. The Padres have been hot. It's the dog days of August, so it's all about how do you finish up August, and then September, you start to get a little bit more of the younger guys coming up from the minors.
Yeah,
You get them into the team. It all starts to be a little bit different because it doesn't feel like the postseason is right around the corner. That's the thing that's always been weird to me about the MLB. It's like teams that are looking at the postseason. Obviously, for the Marlins, it's completely different because I'm just gonna stop talking about the Marlins. I think we're gonna go into a deep depression, and trust me, I've been there. Like, listen, I would
I've been
watch.
that way for 20 years, bro. Come
I've I've
on.
I've stopped I've stopped doing this, but I used to sit down and watch every single game, no matter the time, no matter the place, no matter what. I would sit down and watch all 9 innings. I no longer do that. I did that through the 70, 90 seasons, and it was like, man, we're winning 70 games. I should probably stop wasting my time. But I think now when you have teams that you look at and say, hey, they have playoff potential. They could do well in the playoffs, but then you're bringing in people from the farm. It's a weird mix. It's a weird vibe. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it's like, oh, hello, welcome to playoffs. Like you have to play a wild card series. And obviously those guys from the minors aren't going, but it's like, why are they even on? Why are you even bringing them in now? I just don't think it's the right timing. There's someone who believes in giving young talent a shot and other people a shot. It's me, but I just
Hmm.
don't think that's the right timing for it. But I don't know. World Series thoughts as we shut down shop.
Yeah. You said Yankees, Padres. I'm gonna go with Orioles, Dodgers as my World
Oh,
Series matchup. I think
oh, I dislike
Baltimore's
you.
been Hey, I'm sorry, but let's face it. Baltimore and Los Angeles have been the two best teams in their respective leagues all season long. I think it's going to come down to the Padres and the Dodgers in the NLCS, though. So I'll give you that. I think it's going to be Padres,
I
Dodgers in
like
the
that.
NLCS, and it'll go at least six. That series will go at least six. Do I think it will get to seven? Maybe,
I will probably
but
fly out for that series. If there's a deciding game, might fly out for that.
yeah, yeah, I mean, I don't blame you, man. That would probably be an amazing series to watch. But then in terms of geez, English. In terms of some of the awards, I think that will be given out. I think rookie of the year for the National League, I think it's going to go to Jackson Merrill. I will give you that because he has been
I
insanely
hope.
good.
I hope.
Um, I think the NL Cy Young Award. Oh man, NL Cy Young. I would probably give it to Chris Sale with the Braves. He's been pitching very well
Probably.
this season.
Yeah.
But then in terms of NL MVP, I'll go Shohei Ohtani. AL
Otani,
Rookie of
so
the
annoying. So good.
AL Rookie of the Year. Oh man, I don't even know who's a rookie in the American League. I'll be honest. But AL Cy Young probably. Oof, I don't know, but AL MVP, I'm gonna give it to Aaron Judge. That one I know for sure.
Guy's annoying. Guy's annoying. But those we'll get into a little bit more of that sometime mid next month, next September, and we'll have a look at more Kane soccer. Hopefully, there's a little bit more to talk about in the soccer realm. We'll get into a little bit of the Premier League as it starts to heat up, because of course that's got started now. My
Arsenal,
club.
Arsenal.
I'm an Everton fan, so my heart just
Oh,
hurts. Yeah,
oh,
let's
you and
we'll
Cal
get into it
Friedman
next
both.
time.
I'm so
We'll
sorry.
we'll we'll get into. You say Cal Friedman's an Everton fan?
Yeah, Cal's an Everton
Oh,
supporter, dude.
well, good to know there's more mentally ill people in the world like myself. Um, and then you can tell Cal I said that. He's been doing some great stuff.
We'll
His
send him
mind
the
is
link.
fine, except when it comes to his fandom. Then it gets screwed up.
We'll
But
send him the link to the episode.
we'll have that. We'll have that, and of course, a lot more MLB discussion. Obviously, no Olympics talk anymore, but we'll have more MLB, and the NFL will be underway, and of course, college football. So we're gonna be busy. That's the beautiful thing about sports. It's always busy. It's always something dramatic, something beautiful, and great moments on the Muelendez Monthly Sports Spectrum. I'm Andres Jaime Mendez, and that is Michael Muella. And this is episode 2, your August episode 3 in September.